Hi everyone, good morning. In this session, welcome to Gnan Cloud Garage. In this session, I'm going to talk about vCenter deep dive troubleshooting. So here is the agenda. vSphere installation and setup workflow, and vCenter architecture and components, and vCenter troubleshooting scenarios. Before we deep dive into the troubleshooting scenarios, it requires to understand the vCenter architecture and components. Okay, so these basic concepts are helpful when we are doing the troubleshooting on a vCenter scenarios. And how to determine vCenter, which first boot script failed, and what will happen when vCenter goes down, and what are the different ways we can back up data and system. This is also one of the basic point. Once we understand this basic concept, it's easy to understand how to restore vCenter server from an image based backup, and why high availability is important for vCenter servers, and what are the differences between vCenter high availability and vSphere high availability and Microsoft Windows Server failover cluster. Okay, this is one of the important point. And what are the vCenter high availability deployment modes or configuration options, and VCHA architecture, and how do we troubleshoot VCHA issues, and finally, what are the benefits of vCenter high availability feature. Okay, so this is the agenda. Let's start with the uh, quick recap with our previous session. See, troubleshooting tools importance. Even though when we plan to do the troubleshooting in vSphere environment, either ESXi, vCenter, and any other virtual component, tools have a more importance. Okay, so knowing how to use the tools available to troubleshoot system issues can be extremely helpful. And the GUI, graphical user interface, and the command line and log files. These three are maintain a major key role when we are attending any troubleshooting issues in vSphere environment. So this GUI, command line, and log files can help in troubleshooting of problems when diagnostics are not enough. So as we know, the one of the famous proverb is, even the simplest tools can empower people to do great things. So it's always allow people to do great things. Okay. So same way, even in our virtual environment, we shall not only on the GUI mode, we should also focus on command line method and also the log files when we are attending any of the vCenter level critical issues. Okay, so let's start with the basic concept first. So vSphere installation and setup workflow. As we aware, when we plan to install the vSphere, first we can start the vSphere installation and setup. That means we need to validate all the prerequisites and hardware compatibility list before deploying the ESXi host and vCenter server. Okay, that is nothing but the initial plans, design, and also the deployment before start the deployment. And the initial setup for specifically to vSphere, we can install the ESXi on at least one host. That is a first step. And the second step is we have to set up the ESXi. So we already aware how to install the ESXi host on a bare metal hardware. Okay, just in case if you are first time watching this video, we have a separate session for the ESXi installation, configuration, and management. You can just go to the Gnan Cloud Garage YouTube channel and go to the playlist and look for a ESXi installation video. Okay, and so I'm not focusing on the SX installation now. I am just focusing on a vCenter now. And the second step, once vSXi is ready, we can deploy the vCenter server appliance. So vCenter server appliance, in short form, we call it as VCSA, or sometimes we also call it as vCenter or vCenter server. Whatever the terminology we use, but all represents as a VCSA only, vCenter server appliance. So once one ESX host is ready, we are good to deploy a VCSA. And later on, you can provision a number of ESXi host. And the next step is log into the vSphere client and to create and organize our vCenter inventory. vCenter inventory have so many objects like vCenter cluster create. First, initially start with your data center creation and add the ESXi host. And if we have multiple ESXi hosts, create the cluster and enable HA, DRS, and also the additional features like DPM, fault tolerance also we can enable. And we can also start using all the vCenters features like snapshot, clone, template, vMotion, SVMotion, storage DRS, and so on. Okay, so that is nothing but a all create the using vSphere client, connect to the vCenter and create and configure all vCenter inventory object. That is I think finally we can end of the vSphere installation and setup. Let's say even in our real time scenarios, our organization, the initial setup may take 1 month time or less than a month, depends on our infrastructure size. If your infrastructure size is big, it may take few months to finish all the infrastructure setup. Once the vSphere installation setup is completed and our day-to-day operation task involves some of the requests and some is mainly on a incidents and problems. So as a vSphere administrator, we should know these problems may come in any of the scenario. It may come during the installation scenario, it may come during the update scenario or upgrade scenario, or when you attending some daily operations also, you may found some vCenter layer alerts. So these alerts you can configure using vCenter alarms, or we can configure using VROps, vRealize Operations Manager. We can help, it will help you to monitor all our vSphere infrastructure objects. Or some organization they may use a third-party backup tools like SolarWinds, WhatsApp Gold, NIMSoft, and so on. So many monitoring tools are available in the market. So depends on the customer's choice. Either we can use VMware vCenter alarms default functionality, or we can use any third-party backup tools to monitor virtual infrastructure. So our troubleshooting may start based on once you receive any alert, we can attend the alert troubleshooting only. So as a vSphere administrator, we should learn about end-to-end troubleshooting. Either it can be a initial setup or operation size or during the upgrade scenario. All scenarios we should be familiar. And here, if you plan to install a vCenter server, here are the resource requirement table. So vCenter server we can deploy in a 5 types of deployment sizes. It's almost similar to the t-shirt sizing, like a tiny size, small, medium, large, X large. Based on our organization infrastructure size, we can choose specific vCenter deployment size. Suppose your organization is planned to configure a up to 100 ESXi host. For 100 ESXi host, you can go for a small. Suppose for my remote branch offices, I have only 10 less than 10 ESX host. That time you can configure vCenter with tiny deployment size. If your organization have a more than 400 ESXi host, better to configure with a vCenter large. If your organization have a more than 1000 ESXi host, you can configure X large, extra large deployment size. Okay, but the configuration wise, based on the deployment size, CPU, virtual CPUs will increase, memory will increase, and also the storage will increase. Suppose if your organization is currently running with until around 80 plus ESXi host, but in the next year, as part of the capacity planning or forecast planning, we may plan to add additional 30 ESXi host. That means 82, we are adding a additional 30 ESXi host, means our ESXi host count is adding more than 100 ESXi hosts. During that scenario, it is also recommended, and we should recommend it to the customer. Our vCenter is currently running with a small deployment size. When we are going for a additional ESXi host or more than 100 ESXi hosts, we should always, as a vSphere technical consultant, we can highlight it to our management or our customer. It's recommended to increase our vCenter deployment size from small to medium. That is how we can plan to increase our vCenter virtual CPU, memory, and storage. There is no, it's not recommended to increase CPU and memory specific component individually. As per VMware best practices, it's always change the deployment size. When you need a additional resources, instead of changing the specific CPU and memory, VMware recommended to configure to change the deployment size from deploy small to medium. That is the important point here. And also another key point is, and VMware always in case of if your disk is having full and we have to attend the disk cleanup issues, and if your CPU is high, we need to look for a CPU performance issue, memory performance issue, and so on. Okay, this is also our responsibility. Now next slide, I'm going to talk about specifically to the vCenter server appliances deployment workflow. So vCenter server appliances VCSA deployment workflow. The first one, start the deployment, and it's consists of two stages. Stage one represents as a deploy the OVA. OVA means Open Virtual Appliances file as a VCSA vCenter server appliance. That is a stage one procedure. And coming to stage two, set up a newly deployed VCSA. We have to perform some setup configurations like configuring NTP, time settings, and also the SNMP and so on. That is a two-stage process. And finally, end the vSphere installation and setup. So installation is pretty simple. You can just download the VCSA OVA file from VMware website and start the deployment. Stage one, we are just deploying the OVA file as a VCSA. But in order to do the stage one, we require at least minimally one ESXi host should be ready. And the second stage, we can ready to set up the newly deployed VCSA. And finally, we can end the vSphere installation and setup. But in the screenshots wise, the stage one screenshot is looks like this. And stage one, deploy appliance. So during the deployment, we have a four options are available. Normally, for fresh installation, we should go for a install tab. Suppose your organization currently using a 6.5, 6.7 or any other 6 series with the latest patch of vCenter server. During that scenario, if you plan to upgrade from 6 series to 7 series, we should recommend to choose upgrade option. Okay, that is the importance of second option. And third option, here the importance of W to VCSA migrate. The migrate option recommend is some of the organizations still using vCenter server with Windows platform. Those Windows customers, as a technical consultant, we should recommend that the current latest version vCenter 7 series, there is no more Windows flavor. All are in a appliance flavor only. vCenter server appliance flavor. Suppose if you are any of one of our customer, they are still using a Windows flavor, even in the interviewer or customer may ask a question. uh, they will say, my current vCenter server is running with Windows vCenter, how do I migrate it to the appliance? Then as a technical consultant, you can recommend this step. When you download the VMware OVA file, VMware vCenter OVA file, once we mount the OVA file, we have a four options. There is one of the option is recommended to choose if you plan to migrate from Windows vCenter to Appliance vCenter. During that scenario only, we can use migrate option. That is the importance of third migrate feature. And the last fourth option is restore. The name itself it says restore. Suppose if you have any vCenter server file level backup, this file level backup, if you want to restore, the first step is first deploy the vCenter server freshly, and then you can use your existing file or existing data backup and choose the restore option and map your restoration file, and so that it will restore all your data from existing backup to restore into a new vCenter server appliance. So from this screenshot we observed four scenarios. So sometimes you may find some issues with installation scenario. How we can troubleshoot installation scenarios? We should validate that whether we meet the prerequisites. Prerequisites means whether we have enough CPU, enough memory, enough disk in our ESXi host level. If we do not have enough resources, definitely during the installation we may end up with a failure scenario. Okay, and upgrade, even upgrade scenario also, before upgrade we need to validate our infrastructure, all the hardware and vCenter server is compatible to upgrade it to the latest version. So the verification of compatibility checklist is important even in the upgrade scenario. And migrate also, if your Windows vCenter server, we should verify VMware interpolate matrix whether our Windows flavor is ready to upgrade migrate it to the VCSA or not. That verification we have to do. And restore also same way, if you have existing backup, we can prepare a new vCenter server and use the existing data backup and to restore it to the new vCenter server appliance. That is importance of stage one. But for fresh setup, always we'll go with a install. And the stage two is like a deploy appliance. So stage two, it will always do the setup the appliance in a stage two. So during the setup, normally it will accept the license agreement. The main key part in here is we have to choose the data store, configure the network settings, and in addition, we have to configure a time settings like enable a network time protocol. Okay, this is the importance of vCenter server appliance deployment workflow. Now, in the next slide, I'm trying to explain you the vCenter server architecture. Okay, so the high level architecture is looks like this. As we know, vCenter server is a management tool, and if you want to manage multiple ESXi hosts, in this diagram I'm trying to explain you with the 3 ESXi hosts, not only 3, even 1000 ESX, 1000 plus ESX also we can manage with vCenter server. So you can use any of the hardware like HPE, Dell, IBM, or any third party. Suppose in this diagram we have a 3 HPE hardware. On top of the HP hardware, we install a ESX operating system. And then using ESXi, we can create multiple virtual machine. Normally, to manage single ESXi host, we have to use vSphere host client. But when we are using a more than 2 ESXi host, it's recommended to choose, we have to configure a vCenter server. Once we install vCenter server, it will help you to manage all your ESXi hosts and virtual machines. Okay, so here is the description. vCenter is the management platform for vSphere environments. vCenter server enables us to centrally manage multiple ESXi hosts and their virtual machines. vCenter server is available as an appliance only in vCenter 7.0 and beyond. Even in the future, there will be no Windows flavor, only the appliance flavored versions only. And VCSA is a pre-configured Linux-based VM. So there will be no, it's kind of black box. It won't allow you to do any customization in the appliance level. That is optimized for running the vCenter server and the vCenter server components. And we can deploy vCenter server appliance on an ESXi host in our infrastructure, and VCSA provides advanced features. These advanced features are almost more than 50 features. So I did all the features videos in our previous sessions. You can just go through the playlist button. And vCenter provides advanced features such as vSphere HA, high availability, DRS, FT, vMotion, storage vMotion, and so on. Okay, so here is the high level overview of vCenter architecture. In the next slide, let me explain you architecture components. So vCenter architecture components. So in these components, before understanding the description, let me explain you the diagram first. Let's say, as we know, we require minimally one ESXi host hardware before configuring the vCenter server. So let's say we have one hardware, on top we install the ESXi operating system. After the ESXi host, we can create a vCenter server or we can deploy a vCenter server. But as we know, vCenter server is a virtual appliance. Even though this virtual appliance is nothing but a pre-configured virtual machine. Pre-configured means already inside the virtual appliances, we have a operating system and applications. And this operating system is nothing but this is a Proton OS. And vCenter server package contains the following software. One is Photon OS, that is the component here. And even this application is nothing but a vCenter application. And even to store all your virtual machines and ESXi host configuration data, it requires a database. The inbuilt vCenter server database name is Postgres database. This is by default when we configure a vCenter server. This Postgres SQL database is coming with a embedded database only. So that is the reason I'm elaborating this diagram with this is the VCSA actual architecture. So within the architecture component, we have mainly three components. OS is Photon OS. It's developed by VMware only, and the embedded database name is PostgreSQL DB. This is the database to store all our virtual infrastructure, inventory, objects, and on top of the database, we can run the vCenter application. So how we run any applications in our Windows Server or Linux machine, we have a application services. Same way, when the vCenter application is running here, it's have a vCenter Server services. Okay, that is the high level overview and also the vCenter architectural components. And VCSA also provides SDK, software development kit, access into the environment for solutions such as vRealize automation, the latest version 8.8, and a single vCenter server running version 7.0 can manage 2500 ESX hosts. That is the capability of vCenter server latest version, and it support for 45,000 virtual machine. Most of the scenarios, the extra large or very large organizations only, they will set up this many ESX host and virtual machines. Okay, but if we have n number of ESX and virtual machines, in order to perform your daily operations like virtual machine reboots and virtual machine maintenance activities, virtual machine patching and snapshots and deploying virtual machines from template, these all the tasks it will be taking like a time consuming task. So that is the reason VMware is also providing a SDK access, software development kit access. It will help you to perform a automation activities, but in order to perform your automation, vCenter has to be integrated with vRealize automation, in short form VRA, and the latest version is VRA 8.8. When you integrate our vCenter with VRA, we can automate all our day-to-day operations. Okay, the in detail of SDK and additional one I will explain in the next slides. See, vCenter Server architecture additional components. vCenter Server is supported by vSphere client and vCenter database and managed host. So here, one key point is, as we know, I took the example of 3SXI host, and in order to configure vCenter Server, and there will be additional modules will be installed automatically. And one pre-requirement for vCenter configuration is we require a Active Directory. That means to maintain our fully qualified domain name and also the resolution for our vCenter host name and ESXi host name, we have to create a DNS entries for our vCenter and ESXi host in a Active Directory domain. That is also one of the important component and prerequisites before set up the vCenter server. And another component is vSphere client. This is one of the HTML5 client. It will help you to connect to the vCenter server. Normally, to maintain single ESXi host, we require vSphere host client. To connect to vCenter server, we require a vSphere client HTML5. And and as we know, the database name for vCenter is embedded database PostgreSQL DB. And also there is a additional component that is called PSC. PSC means platform services controller with vCenter single sign-on. Okay, so these all the high level overview plus additional components. Okay, and here vSphere client is the HTML5 based user interface. Let us connect to the vCenter server instances by using a web browser. You can just open a browser and connect to our vCenter server. And this platform service controller also, it's a embedded only, but usually this name platform service controller name we can see when we connect to our vCenter server with remote console or any of the remote access only, we can see platform service control also one of the component. Let's quickly jump into our lab. I will show you this PSC component in vCenter server. So let's connect to our lab system. Let's say within our lab system, let quickly show you our Active Directory. If you see in the left side, the name is AD01. That means it's a Active Directory one Windows VM. It's running on Windows Server 2012. And also we have a ESX1 is running, ESX2 is running, ESX3 and vCenter server. Suppose if I select a vCenter server within the guest operating system, we can see that in our vCenter server, see, if you see the screen now, within the vCenter server, we can see vCenter server 7.0. It's a 0.3. That means 7.0 update 3. This is the build version. And vCenter server with an embedded platform service controller. You can see the component here. This is the component only I'm explaining from the slide. And currently we configured with a 2 vCPUs and close to 12 GB of memory. And please visit the following URL to configure the appliance. If you want to configure anything on your vCenter appliances, we need to type HTTPS, our vCenter fully qualified domain name, and our port number. Port number can be 5480. And suppose if you want to download a log bundle from our vCenter server, this is the URL VMware clearly showing in our home page. HTTPS colon slash slash our vCenter fully qualified domain name colon 443 slash appliance slash support hyphen bundle. If you run this command, if you type this URL, you can able to export our log bundle through the graphical user interface. Suppose the same log bundle, if you want to run from the command line, the command is vc-support. See, VMware given clear instructions from the home screen itself. And to manage vCenter server, they given the URL is HTTPS. We have to type our vCenter server IP address. That is how we can launch the vSphere client homepage. Just open a browser and you can type the URL. Let's say already here the session is login. Let me log out. Suppose if I type the IP address HTTPS 192.168.10.10 and our vCenter IP is 70. When I type 70, you can see the other component is launch vSphere client HTML5. See, this is the component only I'm highlighted in our slide. So vSphere client HTML5 and platform service controller. And also we should have a Active Directory. Even in our home lab, we configured a Windows Active Directory. Okay, so hope you clear about the additional components. And now let's move on to the another point is vCenter developer and automation interfaces overview. This is also important because when we are performing a large organization, when we are supporting for a large organizations, we should also aware of vSphere developer and automation interfaces overview. So here is the automation interfaces overview. Let me explain you starting from ESX. For our easy understanding, I took the example of two ESXi hosts, and each ESXi host have some API interfaces. That API interfaces are SOAP, SOAP, and SIM. These two are the API interfaces. It's commonly run on every ESXi host. And then we also have a vCenter server to manage multiple ESXi hosts. But the importance of vCenter is as similar to the ESXi, even in the vCenter, we have a API interfaces SOAP, SOAP, and CIM SIM. And along with these two interfaces, we even in the vCenter server, we have a REST. This is also additional REST API interface. This REST API interface compared to SOAP and SIM, it have some additional capabilities. When we are performing a automation using vRealize automation tool or vRealize orchestrator tool, we require a REST API access in our vCenter server. Okay, and this SOAP will always use to communicate vCenter SOAP interface communicated to all our associated ESXi hosts SOAP. Okay, and similarly, even SIM also will communicate it to the SIM interface of all our associated ESXi host. And then within our vCenter server, it have some additional capabilities. As I mentioned in our architectural components, we have a additional software development kits. So those kits I just mentioned in a four parts. First one is vSphere management SDKs. This management SDKs specifically to communicate with only two interfaces, SOAP and SIM. So I highlighted the two communications only for the management interface. And if you are using any third party or open source SDKs, this open source SDKs will able to communicate only through SOAP. Okay, okay. And another point is vSphere automation SDKs. This automation SDKs will able to communicate it to our REST API. Okay, and same way vCenter server also have a some other command line access. This command line access we can use either VMware vSphere Power CLI tool or vSphere CLI command line interface or vRealize orchestrator. These tools have a capability to communicate with all these three interfaces. Okay, that is importance of Power CLI and CLI. So any type of SDK interface you can use in order to do automate our day-to operations. Okay, so this API interfaces, let me give you the short notes here. And API as we know, it's an application program interface. An API is a set of definitions and protocol for building and integrating application software. And SOAP full form is Simple Object Access Protocol Endpoint is a URL. It identifies the location on the built-in HTTP service where the web services listener listens for incoming requests. Even we are accessing a vCenter server using HTTPS port only, 443 port. And a SIM, common information model, and system provides an interface that enables hardware level management from remote applications using a set of standard APIs. Mainly the SIM is specifically used for hardware level monitoring. And finally, last but not the least, REST API. This REST API, it stands for representational state transfer. A REST API, also known as RESTful API, is an application program interface or web API that follows to the constraints of REST architectural style and allows for interaction with RESTful web services. So we have so many API endpoints available in our three endpoints available in our vCenter, and specifically the most commonly used one is REST API. Using REST APIs, we can able to integrate our vCenter server with VRA. We can also integrate with the SRM. Not only VMware products, even we can integrate with our third-party storage solutions, backup solutions. That points also I will cover in the next slide. See, vCenter REST API. As we know, we have mainly three interfaces, but within that interfaces, now I'm focusing on the very key interfaces, REST APIs, RESTful APIs. So vSphere includes a developer and automation friendly REST-based API and interfaces that simplify automation and development. Nowadays, automation also very booming, and most of the organizations, they are always look for a automation. So they want to reduce our operational expenditure, so they may look for a automation. So in the back end, in order to do automate our vCenter server activities, the key point is REST API. So here the benefit of REST API is REST API for virtual machine management and simplified and modern API design, and enables easy access to automation from standard tooling and designed with automation and DevOps in mind, development and operations in mind. And full featured SDK, software development kit, CLI and workflow access. So within our vCenter, REST API have capabilities to provide some documentation and also REST based tools. Documentation means even using REST API, we can able to export the reports also. All your vCenter dashboard and health status, all the analysis reports we can export using REST API. And also another key point is REST based tools and software development kits. And we can do automation tooling. And another key point is what is the benefit of vCenter REST API? The main benefits of vCenter REST APIs are VM automation, development, and vCenter server appliance services health check. This is the key use case. And benefits reduces API development complexity and time, and access through modern automation development process for consistency and repeatability, and simplified API model and single point of access for all API samples. Most of the real-time scenarios, our developer team will ask for a REST API access in our vCenter level. Even vCenter's level, as a vSphere admin, we need to provide the access. We need how to create a user ID and assign the specific group and provide the access to our development team. And in our test lab, we are using administrator account, but in the real-time scenario, we have to use our individual accounts only. You can create accounts in our vCenter server, or recommendation is created domain accounts. Better if in our real-time scenarios, most of the employees have a individual Active Directory accounts. Using that account only, we can log into the vCenter. And similarly, even our development team, whenever they want to do any automation task using VRA, and when they want to do connect to the through REST API, as a vSphere consultant, we have to provide the application users access. Okay, so that time only they can able to perform the all automation activity. So until now we enough talk about the vSphere initial setup, vCenter architectural component, additional components, and also the API interfaces. Now let's start jump into the vCenter troubleshooting concept now. So vCenter troubleshooting scenarios, even in vCenter troubleshooting, there is a plenty of scenarios in vCenter troubleshooting perspective. But with interest of our time, I will cover main key scenarios. If any of any remaining scenarios, if I missed it this session, I may cover in the future sessions. Okay, so let's start with the vCenter troubleshooting scenarios. So what is the location of vCenter server logs? So logs are the key role when we are attending any vCenter troubleshooting. So we should know about logs. So we can often obtain valuable troubleshooting information by looking at the logs provided by the various services and agents that our implementation is using. So most vCenter logs are stored in a /var/log similar to our ESXi host. As we know, ESXi host default log location is /var/log. Similarly, even our vCenter server also, all the default logs are stored in a /var/log directory, but inside there is a subfolder is VMware folder. Under VMware folder, depends on the service name, there will be again subdirectories. So we have to open the specific subdirectories to find the specific log file for vCenter server deployments. Okay, so this is the log directory. And if you want to verify this log directory, let me log into our lab system and quickly notice the vCenter server log directory. Let's minimize our GUI mode and open the SSH session putty and type our vCenter server IP address 192.168.10. Our vCenter server IP is 70. When we log into the vCenter server, and as we know, default administrator is root and assign the password. So now we can log into the vCenter server. Let me increase the font. Let's say font is 16. Okay. Now, if we see the vCenter server, when we log in, see vCenter server with an embedded platform service controller. Okay. And the version is 7.0 and the update 3 build version. And when you connect to the vCenter server, we have a three options. If you want to see the list of APIs, help API list of plugins, help PA, space list. This is the information we can find. But only thing is we must start working on the API as well as plugins. Normally developers team will look for this information. And if you want to go for a normal administrative session, normally we use the shell prompt. So you can type SSH commands. You could command is shell. When we type shell, see shell access is granted to the root. And here, if you want to see the all the logs information, type the commands change directory /var/log. When you type /var/log, now type the ls command, you will see all the logs available under the /var/log. You can see some default logs, VC support, VC installer logs, some logs are available. And along with the log files, there will be a folders also. Suppose one of the folder is VMware folder. So again, change the directory to cd space /VMware. When we change the directory to VMware, sorry, cd space VMware, and here, let me clear the screen, type ls, you will see there will be some more subfolders and logs. And but as per the description in our slide description, as I mentioned, the default path is /var/log VMware and also the service name. Our vCenter server agent service name is VPXD, and vCenter service name we should type VPXD. Okay, but if you want to look for a agent service name is VPXA. That VPXA we can find only in a ESXi host level, but in the vCenter level we should log into the vCenter service, that is VPXD means demo service only. So again, change the directory to cd space vpxd and now type the ls. Here you can find a vpxd log file. And there will be old logs also, vpx123 and so on. And the latest information is you can find in a vpxd.log. And we can also see other logs like vpxd profiler logs. Okay, this logs also important. I will explain this log information in the next slide. Okay, so hope you clear about the how we can navigate it to the logs directory. So we can change the directory to the slash var slash log vmware vpxt. Under vpxt only we can see the vCenter server logs. Let's minimize. See, this is the point we covered here. Slash var slash log vmware service name. Service name is vpxt. Under vpxt, we validated the vpxt.log and vpxt hyphen profiler.log. Let me explain that log information in the next slide. So what are the useful vCenter logs for troubleshooting? What is the main key useful points are the vpxt log file is a primary log for the vCenter server, and most vCenter actions are captured in the vpxt log, and log files are useful when trying to resolve vSphere issues. And log files are like vpxt log. This log consists of all vSphere client and web services connections, internal tasks and events, and communication with vCenter agent, that is VPXA on managed ESXi host. And as we mentioned, there is additional logs like VPXT profiler log, scoreboard log. This log's importance is profiled metrics for operations performed in vCenter server. And CIM, Common Information Model, diag log and VMS.log. This log importance is monitoring information, including communication between vCenter and management host CAM interface. This is also important. And EAM log. Sometime if you have any communication issues between ESXi host and vCenter, during that scenario, we can refer to the EAM.log. This log will show us health reports for the ESXi agent monitor extension and connectivity logs to the vCenter server. Suppose if you are working in your organization as a L1 or L2 engineer, if you are not sure about how to analyze these log files, we no need to worry. You can just escalate this issue to your L3 team. Normally, L3 team will focus on this log level analysis. Even L3 team also, some scenarios, if they didn't find the root cause, they didn't find the actual cause, what L3 team and L2 team combinedly, what they will do is they will also coordinate with our VMware technical support team. So technical support team will take care of reviewing all these logs and doing the deep dive troubleshooting. But as a VMware technical consultant, if you have this log information, instead of consulting our VMware technical support, before consulting technical support team, even our internal level, we can able to resolve and able to find the root cause of our vCenter level issues. Okay, that is the reason we have to learn all these log concepts. And log analyzation is simple. Once we open the log file, suppose let's quickly connect to our remote system. Suppose I want to view the our vpxt log. Just type the command cat space vpxd dot log and enter. You can see all the log information here. But when we see the log information, you can just look for any of the error messages. Let's see, there is a one error message. But we, in our real-time scenario, while we are analyzing the log file, always keep in mind we have to look based on the time zone stamp. When the user is complained or your developer is given a complaint, vCenter have a slowness or vCenter have a some connection issue. Let just capture their timestamp. Depends on the timestamp during that scenario. Any errors in our vCenter server, that portion we have to analyze. Sometimes we can find the actual clues. Sometimes if we may not find the actual clues. If you didn't find the actual clues, you can go for a some more logs like a eam.log, or you can use this eam.log. Like that we can analyze further. Okay, most of the time when we start analyzing the log files, we may find the clues. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. What are the useful vCenter log directories? Not only log, there will be some log directories also important. Log directories for troubleshooting. So there are couple of log directories like slash first boot. If you have a vCenter server booting issues, we have to refer to the first boot log. And there is a application management and application management audit. For application management service related issues, we can verify from this directory logs. And also similarly to from proxy, we can refer to the RHTTP proxy. And service control agent service related issues, we can refer to the SAA directory logs. And API endpoint service related, we have a API endpoint. These all you can find in a /vac/log directory. You can find all these log directories. And suppose quickly connect to our lab system. Let's back to the CD, clear the screen, change directory to /var/log, and now type ls. Here we can see all these log directories. Whatever we are discussing now, all these directories you can find here. If any specific directories, if we are not able to see, you can just type the command cd space, change the directory to VMware, you can type ls. And here also you can find some of the directories to analyze further troubleshootings. Okay, so here this analyzation and all, you can just, when you get spare time, you can just start analyzing. So with interest of our time, I'm not covering in detail, but the procedure to analyze, we have an idea now. Okay, now let's back to the slide. These are all the high level logs information. Now let's move on to the next slide. I'm trying to cover one troubleshooting scenario. How to determine vCenter with first boot script is failed. So first, the error is clearly saying first boot script failed. So based on the error message, to determine the which first boot script failed, examine the one of the configuration file. That file name is first boot status.json file. This file also, if you want to analyze this file, we have to export the vCenter log bundle first. So vCenter log bundle, how we can analyze is, we have to run this command vc-support.sh command. Suppose quickly jump to our lab system, the command will try to run. So vc-support.sh command. When you run this command, press enter, it will start analyzing all our vCenter server log files. It will export all the log files. Okay, it may take some time. If you have more ESXi hosts, it may take some little bit longer time to capture all the log files information. And the log file, once it is completed, it will store in our default /var/log/vmware directory. That information only I am explaining here. So once it is run this command, to examine the first boot status.json file, we have to view the file is like a using cat command /var/log. There is a directory called first boot. Under the first boot, you can see the first boot status.json file. Using this configuration file, we can validate that in which scenario our first boot script is failed. We can, once we capture that actual error message, we may find the hints, and we can go for a further troubleshooting. Some scenarios, when the first boot script is failed, most of the time VMware recommend to do with a, that bug is already resolved with the latest patch. When you do your latest patch, that issue may resolve. Okay, and some unknown issues, it's always recommended to contact the VMware technical support team. So this log may take some time. Let me cancel. And suppose if you want to view the JSON file, let's say cat./var/log slash first boot. That means first boot is not yet created. Maybe it will, yeah, first boot is created. Now ls. That means that log file not yet created. It will create only once we finish the vc-support.sh. Okay. While you are testing, you can, if you have a real issues on your vCenter, you can run this command and you can start analyzing the first boot status.json file. Okay. That is importance here. Now let's understand the some more logs. And as we know how to extract the log files from the command line method. If you want to extract, vc-support.extract, and and by default, this, once we run this command, all the logs will store on a /storage/log directory. Okay, so once you capture this log directory using WinSCP tool, you can capture that log and copy to your Windows system and start analyzing based on your comfort. Some may comfortable to analyze in a SSH session, some may comfortable to download it to Windows system and analyzing the all the logs. Based on your comfort, you can analyze the logs. But remember that /storage/log directory, sometimes it may full. So you may also receive the alert vCenter server is hang or vCenter server performance is low. During that scenario, we have to verify df-h, log into the vCenter server using command line, and we can type the command df space -h. When you type df space -h, it will show you all your vCenter server disk directories, and make sure that always use space is less than 80%. If you see in our lab system, all are in a less than 50% usage. But in the real-time scenario, when you keep capturing the vCenter server log files, sometimes this slash storage slash log directory may full. So this is one of the vCenter server common troubleshooting issue. When you receive a vCenter server disk full, or vCenter server performance issues, or vCenter server hang, during these three scenarios, remember that log into vCenter server using command line method and type the command df space -h and validate that not only slash storage slash log directory, all other directories, any log directory is full. If there is any directory is full, recommended to clean up all your old logs. When you clean up all your old logs, that issue may become normal. I repeat, the issues like vCenter may hang when your any of the partition is full. That is one scenario. Another scenario, you may receive the alert vCenter server so and so partition is full. So only solution is clean up the disk space. And how we can clean up? We can clean up the old log files. And third scenario, even when your storage is full, any of partition is full, vCenter may have intermittent disconnection issues. And even developer team also complain that my REST API is keep on failing. Well, let's verify your vCenter backend, vCenter all the services are up and running or not. But most common scenario is when your any one partition is full, but most common repeated issue is slash storage slash log partition is full. So only recommendation is better to do housekeep, clean up all your old log files so that issue may become normal. Okay, so back to the slide. So that is importance of command line method, how we can export the logs, and also remember to do housekeep once your log extraction is completed. And the same logs you can also extract using the graphical user method also. Graphical user method, log into any Windows system, and you can type this URL vCenter server fully qualified domain name 443 application appliance slash support hyphen bundle. This is one method to extract the graphical method logs. And also another method is even log into our vCenter server using graphical mode. In graphical mode also we have an option to extract log files. Here login credential administrator at the rate vSphere.local, and login with our credentials. Once we log in, you can select our vCenter server top level hierarchy. Go to the vCenter inventory and select our vCenter top level hierarchy. Right click, you can see export system logs. While exporting system log, you can select any specific or problematic cluster or ESXi host, that is your choice. And we must include the vCenter server and UI client logs also we have to recommend to enable. Once you click on next, it will take all the performance data. If you want to extract, you can extract, or else if you want to save the disk space, you can just uncheck this one, export logs. Once you click on export logs, it will take some time to log export the all our vCenter server log bundle. So now the log bundle extraction is in progress. It may take some time. That point I highlighted here. Either you can extract from vCenter vSphere client console, or you can use this URL. Okay. Now another point. What will happen when vCenter server goes down? In general, vCenter server goes down means it may have some features like vCenter HA, vSphere HA feature high availability. During the initial configuration only, we need a vCenter server. Once you configure vCenter HA feature on our vCenter cluster level, by default, FDM agent will run on a all our ESXi host, clustered ESXi host. FDM is nothing but a fault domain manager. It is the HA agent service name. And this HA agent service, it will take care, even though vCenter server is down, there will be no impact to your HA feature. Our FDM agents will take care of host failure scenarios, and fault tolerance also will work, and vSwitch features will work, DVSwitch features will continue to work normally during the vCenter goes down scenario. This is one of the common interview question. Most of the interviews you may get this question: what will happen when vCenter goes down? You can explain these 2 points. The first point is vSphere HA, FT, vSwitch and DVSwitch will continue to work normally, and some of the vSphere features will not work. Those features are vMotion, DRS, svMotion, storage DRS, clone, even snapshot via vSphere client. vSphere client, it won't work. But if you want to take the snapshot using vSphere host client, it will work. Okay, and deploying VMs from template. These all functionalities may not work when the vCenter server is goes down. Okay, and you may come up with the expect another question from interviewer is, okay, let's vCenter is down. You know the impact, but how you can resolve vCenter down scenario? But in order to understand how we can resolve the vCenter down scenario, let me explain you the one of the basic backup concept now. That basic concept is, what are the different ways we can back up data and system? This is also one of the important point. Most of the interviews, they may ask different scenario, but as a technical administrator, a technical consultant, we should know what is the main common backup data. That is the important point. Let me explain now. There are three types of backup most used. That three types of backups is image level backup, volume level backup, file level backup. Image level backup means the complete virtual machine full backup, image level backup. All VMX, VMDK files are backed up. Volume level backup, that means it's only the virtual machine directories like C drive, D drive, and Linux side slash boot directory, slash root directory, home directory. This directories level backup, that is called volume level backup. File level backup means it's like a NAS file server, either a Windows file server or Linux based file server. That file server, only the files and folders only we can take the backup. That is called file level backup. So within these three scenarios, any method we can use. Okay, so let me continue the remaining topic in the next session. So the continuation of deep day troubleshooting I will cover in the next session. That's it for today. Thanks for your time. Bye for now.